Before the story begins, if you're watching this right now, I want you to do something simple, but important. Take a second, breathe, and subscribe to this channel. Not because I'm asking for numbers, but because the stories told here, they don't end when the video ends. They stay with you. And tonight's story? This one will sit in your chest long after you close this app. So subscribe. Because once this story starts, there's no turning back. There are moments in life when nothing looks wrong, but everything feels wrong. That night was one of them. The house wasn't loud. There was no argument. No slammed doors. No raised voices. Just silence. The kind of silence that doesn't comfort you. The kind that presses against your ribs. Makes your breathing shallow. Makes your instincts whisper. Something is off. I was standing at the kitchen sink, my hands submerged in warm, soapy water, mechanically scrubbing plates I barely remembered using. Dinner had ended. The table was cleared. The routine was complete. But my body didn't relax. The air felt heavy, thick, like it was resisting every movement I made. That's when I felt it. That sensation you get when someone is watching you. I didn't hear footsteps. I didn't hear a voice. I didn't even hear breathing. I just felt him. I turned my head slowly. Jason stood in the doorway. Not fully in the room. Not fully hidden either. The hallway light behind him barely outlined his shape, casting shadows where his face should have been. For a second, I couldn't even read his expression. But his eyes were locked on mine. Children don't usually look at their parents like that. There was no innocence in his stare. No casual curiosity. No te enaje boredom. It was focused. Intense. Almost deliberate. My heart skipped. Not dramatically, not like in movies, but enough that I noticed it. Jason. I said. My voice sounded normal. Too normal. He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped forward. Slowly. Each step was quiet, his bare feet making no sound against the hardwood floor. No ruse. No hesitation. Like he had rehearsed this moment in his head 100 times, and was finally executing it. I watched him cross the kitchen, my hands still dripping soap and water. My mind struggling to catch up with what my body already knew. This wasn't my son walking toward me. This was someone else wearing his face. He pulled out the chair beside me and sat down. Too close. Close enough that I could feel the warmth coming off his arm. Close enough that the space between us felt invaded. And then he leaned in. His voice, when he finally spoke, wasn't a voice at all. It was a whisper. Soft. Fragile. Almost scared. 3 words. Just 3. And the moment they left his mouth, something inside me cracked open. Earlier that evening had been painfully ordinary. Jason had come home from school like he always did. Backpack hanging off one shoulder, shoes kicked off without a second thought. He mumbled a greeting, grabbed a snack, disappeared into his room. Nothing alarming. He'd been quieter than usual lately, sure. More withdrawn. More thoughtful. But that's what teenagers do, right? That's what I told myself. Boys change. They pull inward. They grow. At least, that's the lie parents cling to when intuition starts knocking too loudly. Dinner passed with minimal conversation. Jason picked at his food, nodded when spoken to, avoided eye contact. I noticed, but I didn't push. I wish I had. After dinner, he vanished again. No games. No TV. No music. Just silence. And then there I was, alone in the kitchen, scrubbing plates while the refrigerator hummed, and the clock ticked like it was counting down to something I didn't know how to stop. That silence came back. Not peaceful. Not calm. Heavy. The kind that makes your shoulders tense for no reason. I dried my hands and walked into the living room, expecting to see Jason sprawled on the couch or glued to his phone. But the room was dark. Too dark. And he was standing there, watching me. That's when time slowed. That's when my chest tightened. That's when I realized, this wasn't about mood swings or teenage phases. This was something else. Something buried. Something dangerous. When he sat beside me, the air changed. It wasn't the warmth of mother and son. It wasn't comfort. It was tension. Unspoken. Coiled. Waiting. What's going on? I asked, trying to sound casual. My voice betrayed me anyway. It cracked. Jason didn't answer right away. He stared straight ahead, his jaw clenched, his hands resting in his lap like he didn't trust them not to shake. The silence stretched, pulled, strangled the room. Finally he spoke. Mom. Just that word. And somehow, it scared me more than anything else. What is it, sweetheart? I whispered. He looked down, fingers twisting the fabric of his shirt, his shoulders rising and falling with shallow breaths. I knew then. Whatever he was about to say, there was no going back from it. I need to tell you something. His eyes met mine, and the fear in them wasn't the fear of being punished. It was the fear of being seen, the fear of truth, the fear of losing everything. I felt like I was standing on the edge of something deep and dark, staring down without knowing how far the fall was. And then he whispered it. 3 words. Mom. I'm sorry. The world didn't end, but it tilted, and I knew nothing in our lives would ever sit the same way again. After Jason said those 3 words, Mom, I'm sorry, the room felt like it stopped breathing. I didn't respond right away. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know how. Sorry for what? Sorry could mean 1,000 things. A bad grade, a lie, a mistake. But nothing about his face suggested something small. His shoulders were tense, drawn inward like he was trying to make himself smaller. His eyes stayed fixed on the floor, as if looking at me would make everything collapse faster. Sorry for what? I asked quietly. The question barely made it past my lips. He swallowed hard. I didn't mean for it to happen, he said, his words tumbling out faster now, like once the door cracked open, the truth was pushing its way through. I tried to forget it, but I can't. I can't sleep. I can't think. Every time I look at you, I feel like I'm lying. My chest tightened. What happened, Jason? I said, forcing myself to stay calm. You can tell me. He shook his head slowly. That's the problem, he whispered. I don't know how. Another pause. Another stretch of silence that felt like it might suffocate us both. Then he took a deep breath, long, shaky, and finally said it. It was after the camping trip. My stomach dropped instantly. The camping trip. The one I hadn't worried about. The one I had trusted. He had gone with his best friend and his friend's family. I remembered helping him pack, reminding him to call, smiling as he waved goodbye. I remembered thinking, he's growing up so fast. Now those memories felt contaminated. I didn't tell you everything that happened there, Jason continued. I thought if I kept it inside, it would go away. He paused again, his voice barely holding together. It didn't. I leaned forward slightly, my hands clasped together so tightly my fingers ached. Jason, please. His voice cracked. Emily kissed me. The words landed softly, but the impact was brutal. Emily. His best friend's older sister. Someone I trusted. Someone I knew. Someone who had been around my family for years. For a moment, my brain refused to process it. She what? I asked. He nodded, eyes still down. At first, I didn't even understand what was happening. We were sitting by the fire. Everyone else had gone to sleep. We were talking, laughing. His hands started shaking, and then she leaned in. I felt something twist violently inside my chest. But you pushed her away, right? I said quickly. You told her no? Jason shook his head. No. The word was barely audible. I didn't stop it. My breath caught. I should have, he rushed on, tears finally spilling over. I knew it was wrong. I knew it. But I froze. And after that, I couldn't stop thinking about it. He looked up at me then, and the shame in his eyes broke something in me. I hated myself for it, he whispered. I still do. The room felt unreal, like I was watching someone else's life unfold. You're just a kid, I said, my voice trembling despite myself. You didn't know how to handle something like that. But I liked it, he said quickly, the guilt pouring out of him like poison. And that's what scares me. The words echoed in my head. He wasn't confessing because he got caught. He was confessing because he couldn't live with it. I didn't want to feel that way, he continued. I didn't want to think about her. I didn't want to lie to you. But every time I tried to forget it, it came back stronger. I finally reached out and placed my hand over his. He flinched slightly. That hurt more than anything else. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked gently. Because I thought you'd look at me differently, he said, his voice breaking completely now. Because I was scared you wouldn't see me as your son anymore. Tears filled my eyes. Oh, Jason, I whispered. In that moment, I understood something painful and important. This wasn't about betrayal. This was about confusion, boundaries, and a child trying to carry something far too heavy alone. I should have protected you better, I said quietly. I should have asked more questions. I should have noticed. He shook his head. It wasn't your fault. We sat there together, both crying now, the weight of the truth finally out in the open. What happens now? He asked. I took a deep breath. Now, I said, we deal with it. Together. I explained that what happened wasn't okay, but that it didn't define him. That feeling confused didn't make him bad. That silence and shame were far more dangerous than truth. We talked longer than I realized. About boundaries. About trust. About how grown-ups sometimes fail kids without meaning to. And when the night finally grew quiet again, it felt different. Not heavy. Not threatening. Honest. Before he went to bed, Jason stopped at the doorway and turned back to me. Mom. Yes. Thank you for not hating me. My heart shattered and healed at the same time. I could never hate you, I said. I love you too much for that. He nodded and disappeared down the hall. I sat alone on the couch long after, staring at the darkened room, thinking about how close I had come to missing something that mattered. That night didn't destroy my family. It saved it. Because sometimes, the scariest confessions are actually cries for help. And listening, truly listening, can change everything.